Thank you, Mr. President. Today I'd like to go over the American Rescue Plan Act grant awards that we're making a recommendation. I do have Ms. Brandy Nallman here. I had some staff in the audience that had to go back up. Ms. Lori Webb and Ms. Andrea Wall, they all helped go through these applications. So just as a background, Sussex County received the $45.5 million in appropriations from the U.S. Treasury over a 2-year period. In March, I did a presentation on how the funds were recommended to be spent. And if you remember, there's only certain items that we can spend those funds on, and it's replace revenue loss, support public health response, address negative impacts to COVID, offer premium pay, and invest in water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. At that March meeting, I went over the goals of my recommendation. It was obviously to meet all the ARPA requirements. The projects have to be completed or under contract by December 31st, 2024. The plan was not to grow government, so let's not invest in any programs that we're going to have to continue to fund in the future. We want to strengthen the programs that we have in place today, align the recommendations that are with the council priorities, such as affordable housing and adequate infrastructure, and not to duplicate what was already being done by other local governments, such as broadband or small business grants that were given by the state of Delaware. Again, just continue to reiterate what happened in that March meeting. These were the allocations. These were the recommendations. Sewer infrastructure, $25 million. Affordable housing, $6.3 million. IT infrastructure, specifically cybersecurity in the water and sewer infrastructure. Low-income services, EOC employees. Remember, we were hiring, as we discussed in the budget, 8 additional employees, 4 dispatchers, 4 paramedics that were being funded by ARPA. Fund the kitchen incubator. Enter into some intergovernmental grants, and then some large grants to nonprofits. Now, specifically today, we're focusing on 2 of those items, the affordable housing, the first round of applications, which were totaling $3 million, and then also into the large grants for the other nonprofit entities, such as the hospitals, which were totaling $5 million. As I discussed in that March meeting, there was a process that we needed to go through before I came before you for the votes today for those awards. I gave you that presentation in March. We had the application process. The applications were reviewed, like I said, by a group of people. Council is receiving the presentation on the applications, and now today to award those funds. So a summary of those applications. So again, we had 2 types of application periods. The nonprofit grant applications, we received 14 applications. It was $12.5 million in request. And again, we only had $5 million budgeted for that. And then the affordable housing applications, we received 13, and we received $6 million in request for that program. And again, we had $3 million budgeted for that one. So we'll focus right now on the nonprofit grant program. So just like ARPA required, it needed to respond to public health emergency, negative impacts related to public health emergency. We did not want to do affordable housing in this group of applications since we do it in the second group. Nonprofits only were to apply. Projects had to be over $500,000 and obviously meet all the reporting and compliance requirements by the Treasury. So we did set up some criteria to evaluate those 14 applications that we had. This criteria was established in the application at the time. And obviously we went into the compliance with the final rule, make sure the criteria fits within the final rule. They had demonstrated they had some federal requirements, federal funds before, so that we know that they understand all the red tape that is required. The time period fits within ARPA. As you said, I have to have this by December 31st, 2024, at least under contract. Can they meet those deadlines? They have the adequate ability to measure success and results. It's another big thing with ARPA. We have to report on those successes and results. We needed to show that they had an urgent need, and then also that it's sustainable after the funds are gone. So what's their plan going forward? We also looked at how it maximizes the number of beneficiaries. It was good if they used other partners to expand that program. And you can see how it was up to 100 points for this program. So the way the awards were, if they received at least 80 points or higher in the evaluation, we're making a recommendation for those awards. So the first one is Bay Health. This is all in alphabetical order, not order by ranking. This is for medical equipment for their new emergency room, and this is specifically COVID-related medical equipment. Again, we have to make sure that it applies to ARPA. BB has a rural healthcare initiative to reach out to those low-income individuals to receive health care. Children's Beach House, expansion of their youth development program to provide year-round program for 100 children. Again, this would be for low-income children. The Community Resource Center is to keep low-income individuals and families stably housed by preventing eviction and utility disconnects. And we did work with them through Brandy's group previously when we had CARES Fund, and they had done an excellent job there as well. Easter Seals, again, they're located here in Georgetown, replace outdated and inefficient HVAC system at their Georgetown facility. The Montessori Works renovate their campus barn. They primarily serve low-income individuals at their school, but this is a barn that will be used for the community, not just the school. And then the third hospital is Tidal Health. Very similar to BB, provide wraparound services to address social drivers of health and expand healthcare delivery and access in rural, low-income communities of disadvantaged populations. And then the dollar amounts, the way that the $5 million is allocated is based off of the request and if it was eligible for ARPA funds. So you can see how that allocation works out here on the screen. Okay, moving on to the second grant program. This is the Affordable Housing Grant Program. Ms. Nallman did lead this initiative. So for this one, the eligible uses and restrictions were to provide funding for projects that assisted individuals making less than 65% AMI. If you remember, that is an ARPA requirement. I do have a table there what 65% AMI equals. The projects must have deed restrictions, 20 years for homeownership, 30 years for rental. And the funding level for these applications was $500,000 per project or $50,000 per unit with a cap of $500,000. Again, we received 13 applications. Those applications were reviewed by a group of us, and this was similar criteria. We wanted to make sure they had the experience, whether it's in affordable housing or federal grants. They have the capacity to do everything that we need for the ARPA grants. They're serving a vulnerable population. They have they documented the need of that population. Their project addresses that need. And then some project specifics. Are there special features, meaning are they using LED lights or ADA accommodations? They have a plan to touch multiple people that need this type of housing. They have partnerships. You can see local support by our local housing groups. We also gave them some bonus points if they're repurposing, redevelopment, or existing units. Purchasing or developing a zombie subdivision or assisting with households even below that 65% at 50% AMI. So there was a total of 51 points that could be awarded in this group of applications. Here, very similar structure, 42 points or higher, works out to be 80%, were awarded. The applicants that did receive at least 42 points was Better Homes of Seaford. This is a 36 rental housing unit for the elderly in Seaford. Milford Housing Development Corp., 20 homeowner units in Lewis. There was a second application from Milford Housing that was 10 homeownership units in Greenwood. Millsboro Housing for Progress, a rehabilitation of 38 rental units in Millsboro. And then Sussex County Habitat for Humanity, 10 home ownership units throughout Sussex County. And all of them did apply for the $500,000 max. They do all qualify because they do have at least 10 units. And I just want to make a comment here. As you can see, I don't have the full $3 million spent because just as of last night, we were notified that one of them had to pull out their application because they didn't get funding, or Millsboro did not accept their annexation into the town to be accepted. So this will continue with the ARPA requirements. We're going to require them to submit things to us quarterly, receipts quarterly, their statistics quarterly. So if they don't keep up, we're not going to be able to continue to award them their funds. And this will, but these are our initial ones. I do have a motion for consideration, but at this time, I'll take any questions.
Why don't you read your motion first?
Sure. Be it moved that the Sussex County Council approve the county entering into individual grant agreements with the entities as presented, contingent on the entities meeting all the requirements to be awarded to the ARPA funds. And then they're all listed there with the dollar amounts.
Pleasure, council. Motion, Mr. Riley.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hudson. Questions?
So that leaves a million in the affordable housing?
$500,000. $500,000. And my recommendation is we will have a second round in March of next year to move that $500,000 to the next.
And Millsboro could come back if they...
Absolutely, if they can get in the annexation. Mm-hmm. Correct.
More questions? We'll take the vote. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
I'm yes, motion carried. Thank you both, and whoever helped you very much.
Yes, thank you.
A lot of work on it.